The National Park Service logo.
Title: Yellowstone in depth. Yellowstone's northern range.
Panoramic view of majestic hills, covered in lush green forests and illuminated by sunlight. A bear lumbers through a forest with fallen tree trunks and tall vegetation. Then an elk, a pronghorn on top of a hill, two wolves moving cautiously through a barren forest, a bear grazing and a cougar feeding, its snout stained with blood. Next, several mammals moving through the northern range landscape. Three bears lumber across a shrubland, then a coyote sniffing the ground, followed by two wolves swimming their way out of a river.
The Northern Range is the hub of wildlife in Yellowstone. So much of the wildlife in Yellowstone lives here. It's 10% of the area of the park, yet half the wolves live here. It's arguably the most carnivore-rich area in North America, and it's been studied a lot.
A cougar swiftly crossing a narrow rocky path, then two deer with their calves, followed by a large herd of bison foraging.
Kira Cassidy, wildlife biologist at Yellowstone National Park.
The Northern Range has been referred to as the Serengeti of North America, and that's because of the vast numbers of ungulate species mostly. And so when people look out, they may, in one afternoon, in the valley bottom of a Northern Range valley, they may see bison, elk, pronghorn, mule deer, wolves and bears, and all of these species interacting with each other.
A bear scaring a few wolves away. Then a topographical map of the Northern Range.
Doug Smith, wildlife biologist at Yellowstone National Park.
Well, the Northern Range is the northern area of the park where the northern Yellowstone elk herd spends the winter.
Snow falling heavily on a white winter landscape. In the distance, the figure of a bull elk barely visible through the fog. Then an elk standing on a snow-covered plain.
So it's winter range for the biggest elk herd in the park. And it's probably the densest year-round wolf population at any location in North America.
A pack of wolves moving through a snow-covered, sparsely forested area. Next, a bear trudging through a field of flowers, followed by a cougar and a coyote framed by snow.
We roughly have 35 to 40 wolves year-round in the park portion of the Northern Range, but we've been as dense as 100 wolves just in the northern part of Yellowstone. And we have pretty high bear densities and cougar densities as well. So we have a great mix of carnivore species, and we have high density. 50 years ago, that was not the case.
A series of old black and white photographs depicting a man posing in front of several animal hides. Then two men holding a hide between them while three others pose next to them, holding guns. Next, 6 men photographed in front of dozens of wolf hides.
We came into the Northern Range as Yellowstone was designated a park and changed a lot of things. So wolves, coyotes, mountain lions, bears to some degree were all being removed in vast numbers.
Wolves were eliminated by people directly in the early part of the 20th century. So what happens when you kill off the predators? Well, the prey increases to very high levels and starts impacting the environment. And by doing that, the elk herd shot up, and no one really knows how high they shot up. 20, 30,000 was the estimated figure.
A herd of elk foraging.
And they were degrading the environment.
A female elk grazing, followed by a close-up view of a bull elk with majestic antlers.
Our policy on helping restore nature is fairly clear. If humans did it, we'll help the system get back on the right track.
A picture showing 4 wolves chasing after a bull elk.
So what was missing were all these carnivores. And so they were not performing their ecological function.
A cougar moving cautiously through a blanket of thick snow, then a pack of wolves in a forest, followed by a close-up shot of a bull elk.
Cougars came back to Yellowstone on their own through natural dispersal. We started seeing signs of that in the 80s, and we reintroduced wolves in the mid-90s. And now that wolves and cougars have been restored and bears have increased, the new story is about what happened to all the elk. And what is happening to the willow and aspen now that the elk have declined and these carnivores are back.
Views of a forest covered in lush vegetation, illuminated by bright sunlight. Then, two moose periodically sniffing the ground, followed by a beaver lounging and eating, half submerged in water.
The willow is relied on by a lot of animals, and so it's kind of a positive feedback loop. The more willows there are, the more moose and beaver, and the healthier the ecosystem because of those animals being involved too.
A large dam made up of mud and tree branches stretches across a river.
And so beavers are, of course, nature's engineers, and they'll build lodges and dams that will help raise the water tables.
A small waterfall created in the middle of a river by a beaver dam. Then, a view of willows growing on the riverbanks, close to a beaver dam.
And raising the water table is one of the things that the willows rely on the most. They can't deal with cut banks and swiftly moving creeks. They have to have that slow-moving water.
A herd of elk grazing under the sun. Next, a wolf trotting up a hill, then two bears lumbering along.
So this smaller elk herd is more natural. We're seeing a response of willow and aspen, which used to be suppressed. We've got wolves and cougars back. We've got more bears. So Yellowstone's system now is a National Park Service success story.
Panoramic view of a river flowing gently through a majestic hilly landscape, then a close-up of purple flowers.
I think the Northern Range is incredibly unique, not only for the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, but for the world.
A large herd of elk grazing on a green valley, then a sequence of shots, showing a deer, a pronghorn, and a bull elk.
Protecting Yellowstone is important to just protect the species that live here, but also provide people a place to be able to see natural processes and use that throughout their life for making decisions on what they think is important.
A herd of bison traversing a shrubland while visitors observe them from inside a small yellow van. Then, three grizzly bears, followed by a wolf chasing after an elk. A moose descends a hill covered in shrubbery. Next, several shots of animals grazing in quick succession.
I think a huge value of the national parks is to instill awe of nature into people. Going out on a landscape filled with grizzly bears is not the same as, going to the mall. And seeing wolves bring down an elk or seeing two wolf packs clash right in front of you are life-altering events. There's no question we are changing people's lives by having places like Yellowstone. And the Northern Range is probably the heart of the park, and the park's the heart of the ecosystem. So it's all built upon each other, but at ground zero is the Northern Range.
Panoramic view of a green valley where large herds rest or graze.
Yellowstone in Depth, Yellowstone's Northern Range, produced by Stephen M. Bumgardner. Featuring Kira Cassidy and Doug Smith, camera Stephen M. Bumgardner and Neil Herbert. Made possible by a donation from Canon USA Incorporated through the Yellowstone Park Foundation.